Hello and welcome to another standard video here in the preview event for Through the Omen Paths, the digital version of the paper Spider-Man set. And today my supporters on Patreon voted that I should build a deck around a Verilax. In paper this is Anti-Venom, a 5-mana 5/5. When it enters, if it was cast, we get to return a target creature card from our graveyard to the battlefield. So we get to reanimate something, and then if damage would be dealt to Verilax, we get to prevent that damage and put that many +1 counters on him. So very difficult for a lot of decks to remove, as Verilax is just going to keep getting bigger and bigger. So we have a white reanimation effect, which is a bit unusual for creatures at least. So then it makes sense to pair it with Yuna, which is another white reanimation effect that specifically gets back enchantments out of our graveyard at the beginning of our end step. During our turn, Yuna and enchantment creatures also have Trample, a lifelink, and a Ward 2. So we now have 8 of these 5-mana reanimation effects, and then we want all the top end to be expensive enchantment creatures, so both Yuna and Verilax can return them. And that's where we have the White Overlord, can also be impended for 4 mana, so if we draw it later, we can still make use of it, or it can fill out our curve if we don't have anything going on turn 4. And then it gets to make a pair of Flying Insect tokens, whether we impend it or get it back out of the graveyard. Then we've got some of these enchantment creature sagas as well from Final Fantasy. The 8-mana Summon Knights of Round is a 3/3 that's indestructible, and on the first 4 turns it will make 3 2/2 Knight tokens, eventually pumping the team, giving them an indestructible counter as well. And then we've got the full set of Summon Bahamut, a 9/9 flyer. On the first 2 chapters gets to destroy target non-land permanent, then draws 2, and eventually deals a bunch of damage equal to the total mana value of other permanents we control. So that can also usually end the game for us. So these are the cards we want to ideally discard and then reanimate using either Verilax or Yuna. So then the deck is split up in 3 main categories. We've got our finishers, our reanimation effects, and then our discard outlets. So if we draw one of these expensive enchantments, we can put them in the graveyard. And those also include the new Knife Trick, which is cast for a red mana in this deck, even though it's black-red hybrid. Can either pay 2 mana as an additional cost or discard a card. So that gives us a very cheap discard outlet while giving us some interaction, as we get to deal 3 damage to target creature. We've got Fear of Missing Out, can also pretty easily enable Delirium to set up an extra attack step, but this can also enter discarding and drawing. Also an enchantment, so we can also get it back with Yuna if we don't have anything else. Then I'm also running the new Romantic Rendezvous, which lets us discard a card and then draw 2. Note, it doesn't say as an additional cost to cast, discard a card. So if we're empty-handed with Rendezvous as our only card, we get to cast it and simply draw 2, so then we don't have to discard anything. So that's a neat little upside. And then there's Seize the Spoils. Here we do have to discard a card as an additional cost to cast it, to draw 2, and make a treasure. So playing this on turn 3 gives us enough mana on turn 4 to already cast Verilax or Yuna, so that can give us the most powerful start possible. And then to round out the deck, 2 copies of Day of Judgment as a board wipe. I also considered running some red sweepers to maybe synergize with Verilax, since if we deal damage to it with our sweeper, we can make it even bigger. But supporting double red when we also need 5 white mana to cast Verilax was a little bit tricky, so went with a Day of Judgment instead, which can also neatly wipe the board. And then the mana base is a little tricky, as I mentioned, since we need every land to be able to produce white mana. So I'm going with a couple Surveil lands here, which can also maybe fill the graveyard with one of our expensive enchantments and dig for the missing pieces. And then the Verge lands also pair well with those, so they can also make white mana, assuming I have at least a forest or plains, which is not going to be a problem. Couple basic planes, Sacred Foundry, don't have Temple Garden yet, so I'm rounding things out with 2 starting towns to have enough green mana for Yuna. So we only really have a little bit of green for the splash for Yuna, so I'm not casting any cheaper green cards, otherwise we would have to adjust the mana base. So yeah, that's our deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with what looks like a Keeper. Still missing our reanimation effects, so that's what we'll be looking for. And there's Verilax. So turn 2, we could already Knife Trick if needed. And yeah, I guess the turn 1 Elves. I'm down. Discard Summon Knights. Probably gonna also discard the Overlord next turn. And then if we can draw another untapped land, we could Verilax turn 4. Opponent passes. Alright. Still gonna try this. Hope it doesn't get countered. That works. So yeah, next turn we can already get something back. This new addition can be pretty fun. Opponent can immediately trigger it to make an extra Lunar Elves. So they're also off to the races. And then Knights of Round versus Overlords. Close call. Blue could have bounce spells for either one, so then I might prefer the Flyers. Next turn we can at the very least impend, unless we draw another untapped land. Right, now Wildwood Scourge and grows it some more. So those can pick up additional +1 counters. Still 4 mana remaining thanks to those elves. And a Mockingbird can also copy something. Is their opponent's going off? Copies my insect tokens. So the deck probably has a bunch of X spells to keep going up the chain. I get to attack, and could bring back the Knights of Round, we'll see. That's certainly reasonable, or we can just impend, make more Flyers, and then wait a little bit longer. Parlor, maybe look for Yuna. Finding a Bahamut to put in the graveyard could also be useful. Now Goldvein Hydra for 3. At least it doesn't fly. Or have reach. It is a Hydra, so it doesn't grow the Wildwood Scourge even more, since it only triggers off non-Hydras. Could trade here. Could also just take it, since we're kind of winning in the air. That's 11 coming across. And yeah, let's go ahead and attack. See what happens. Don't have to attack with Verilax, but we have another one. Opponent's at 2. Alright, so now what's the safest move? Just Verilax, get back. Summon Knights, I suppose. Keep the untapped one. So both decks got to do their thing. Fear is also good if we're empty-handed, to just draw a card for free. Now a Spelunker gets to explore a bunch. The Hydras are getting big, but at least these don't trample. See a Terra Symbiosis go to the graveyard. Opponent hits a bunch of lands now. So yeah, great showcase of the Reviver when it gets to go off. So it's still going to be close here. It does have Trample. So this one is indestructible. This one can soak up 5 damage. These can block here. Block here, so we don't take trample from the Hydras. Jump here. Something along these lines looks okay. They will get some treasure, but it's tapped. So no real risk of our opponent doing anything else. Verilax now at 10-10. Just want to see what else we can draw here, but opponent is dead. Right, just a land. And the Flyers can do the honors. Alright, sweet. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. We have lots of discard outlets and removal, and no payoff yet, but we do have a Yuna. So this one's close, maybe on the draw. I can keep this. Play Parlor, which will set up the knife trick. And then keep Plains. Put on blue-red. And this probably has to go. So I can knife trick, discarding a knife trick perhaps. Keep the Rendezvous to dig a little bit deeper. Maybe Surveil first. That's a good one to put in the graveyard. So the next turn I can maybe Rendezvous just to hit my land drop, or I can cast a 3-mana knife trick. And then hopefully Yuna can take over. Didn't want to let my opponent connive to set up their Mayhem synergies. But they've got another discard outlet. Summon Bahamut we actively want to put in the graveyard. Can maybe start with Rendezvous, discard Bahamut, and then maybe still knife trick afterwards. Yeah, that seems okay. Can discard the Fear. Does mean I won't have any play next turn, but at least I guarantee turn 5 Yuna. And we slow the opponent down a bit. Alright. See Fleam now, finally in action. Surveil, keep Verilax as another way to reanimate something in case Yuna gets answered. Orb Weaver's next, can maybe discard something that they can then Mayhem. And they're gonna cast a frontside now. Okay, so we've got some catching up to do. Summon Bahamut is probably where we start. Take out the flyer. Does have menace, yeah. And then Yuna can give Summon Bahamut lifelink for next turn. Can block that one. So our opponent gets to discard another Mayhem card, perhaps. Just a swamp. And now the house destroys Bahamut. But now we still have a Yuna left over. So can play this now, doesn't matter. Hit you for 5. And then Yuna can go for the same Bahamut. And destroy something. I'm fine discarding a card. Could go for Knights of Round, which is maybe harder for them to interact with. Can maybe get that back next turn. And then take this out for now. Alright, another house grows hungry. Goes for Bahamut over Yuna. And a Fear lets them draw for free now. So we still have a Yuna in play at least. Keep up the pressure. Don't want to attack with Yuna since they can double block. Bahamut is gone since it got a finality counter, but I can still go for my Knights of Round. And next turn, I guess I'm not going to be able to get back the Fear since they're going to exile the graveyards here. But yeah, luckily that happened a little bit too late for it to matter. And there we go. Awesome. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand is missing one of our reanimation effects. So either Verilax or Yuna. But we've got some redraws and some surveils to get there. Keep the lands, since we'll need those. And can go for a rendezvous. Discard our biggest win condition. Find another one. A knife trick, another discard outlet, or can just deal 3 for 3 mana. And our opponent on the spider deck. Still tempted to seize the spoils, discarding another summon knight. Can maybe impend the overlord. And then save my knife trick for something else, or I can just take out the weaver now and surveil. But the highest upside would be drawing one of my 5-drops and being able to ramp them out next turn. Still nothing, so only drawing the payoff cards. Could still knife trick with a treasure, maybe that's worth it to slow them down. And then next turn we can impend, turn after impend and surveil. And they've got another weaver, but no extra land. Okay, now with the untapped land there's no real drawback. Otherwise I could have maybe considered leaving myself with the option of casting a 5-drop on curve if we draw Una or Verilax. Alright, there's a Battle Crier, so maybe not quite a spider deck, but more of a Battle Crier combo. So that's pretty concerning. I get to surveil, keep Una, but our opponent could already combo off here, so not feeling super confident. So let's see what damage the Battle Crier can do. Currently giving everything a 1 mana discount, but with a Weaver they can keep untapping it to generate a mana. So this turn could be quite explosive. Start with 2 mana. Maybe play Trailblazer. Yep. We've seen this combo before with a Battle Crier. So now everything gets a 3 mana discount. Could see a 1 mana Roaming Throne, which then also untaps the Weaver, and then they can keep going. So we could easily be dead here. Third Trailblazer is pretty strong. So the chances of our opponent fizzling now are pretty low. Yeah, the Weaver seems like a good addition to the archetype. And goes for red mana. To torch a token, that's fine. Anything else? Tapped starting town, since more than 3 turns have passed. And the opponent's convoking through the Omen Paths, thanks to all those discounts. Untaps Weaver, so they can keep going. And what do you hit? A Roaming Throne, like we mentioned. Name's Human, so now they get to draw 6 more cards. At least we're already past the attack steps, so it's not like they can make a bunch of hasty creatures to win right now. So I guess that's it, unless they want to play more Roaming Thrones or colorless spells. There's the Vestige, perhaps, from Edge of Eternities. But yeah, once they assemble Battle Crier plus Trailblazer, bad things happen, and they had triple Trailblazers, so all we can do is play Una. And go to attackers. Hit you for 4, get back our Knights of Rounds. And probably die next turn. I've got a few of these. Opponent has to be careful not to deck themselves with Roaming Throne and triple Trailblazer. So that's now the main challenge. Dragonhawk represents a ton of damage. So that's just 12 damage by itself, basically. 26 cards remain. And the devastating Onslaught now copies Dragonhawk some more. We'll still trigger the Trailblazer, which is not an optional ability. So our opponent draws 14 more cards, but as long as they don't deck here with the Dragonhawk triggers, they'll exile the rest of their deck, which is 2 damage for each card in exile, and that's going to be game over. Opponents maybe made a mistake here, going for Through the Omen Pass, select Battle Crier, and now our opponent draws from an empty library, losing the game. Just want to double check, this is optional, right? Yeah, you may put a card. So if they didn't select the Battle Crier, they actually would have won, since we just died to the Dragonhawk triggers. But yeah, opponent maybe got a little bit overzealous here. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Missing one of our reanimation effects, which is kind of the most unique card that we typically want in our opener. Do have a redraw and a surveil, and we have a knife trick we can cast early if needed, which is also maybe a bit better when we're on the draw. Get an extra draw step as well. Close call, I think I'll try it. But there's definitely a chance we just never find one of our reanimation effects and get run over. Opponent on a red-green spider aggro deck, perhaps. So we could already knife trick. Or I can wait and maybe take out something bigger. For now, surveil. And there we go, Verilax is what we want. Now we just need to survive until 5 mana. Got a blocker and a removal spell. Twitching Doll might be a better target for the knife trick. I think I just take 2 here. And discard Bahamut. Ideally draw Seize the Spoils, so we can already Verilax on 4. So this is a 5-color spider deck, it seems. Gets to exile the top card, which is a heirloom, which they can maybe play next turn. For now, start with a Fear. Or we can surveil first. I guess we'll Fear, discard Starting Town. Another knife trick. That was the reason to keep Starting Town if I still wanted to cast it. But I also need to keep 5 lands. That one we don't mind binning. So Delirium is enabled for what it's worth. Next turn we can just knife trick for 3 mana. Alright, opponent gets to reanimate something, and wow, this can choose a creature from any graveyard, including ours. So they got to steal my Summon Bahamut. That was a blowout. And yeah, not something I was expecting here at all. So this is symmetrical, so yeah, it can also exile our stuff. Well, that's probably gonna win them the game. I guess it is only a 4/4, but it's still gonna destroy something next turn, so don't wanna present any permanents. Then they get to draw. It's also still a spider. I guess we can take out the Storyteller. Yeah, that's rough. Heirloom is next. And giving spiders +1/+1 now as well. So we take 7, 8 rather, since they get a counter, and they can also draw with Heirloom. Well, that was a blowout. Our opponent using our graveyard against us. I guess they first draw 2, so yeah, it's still another turn until the final chapter, but now they just get to fly over for 5. And they also had the Scions. Scions we can maybe beat if we get Bahamut down, but yeah, that'll do it. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. This hand might be a little too slow. Also still missing a discard outlet for Summon Bahamut. So if I don't draw anything before turn 5, of course, we're going to get run over. So this is probably a mulligan. This one is just missing, I guess, something to discard as well as a red mana. I'll try. With 2 surveils, we're somewhat likely to get our red. Zack from our opponent. And then I'm gonna have to say no to the Verge. Knife Trick can also function as a discard outlet, or we can just cast it for 3 mana. Now a Dollmaker's Shop gets to immediately make a token. So our opponent's off to the races, and yeah. Drawing only the green-white lands is awkward. Seize the spoils I cannot keep. Get some +1 counters. So we're under quite a bit of pressure. Can finally cast one of my spells. So then I think it's maybe Knife Trick Zack. Still have to take 2. Or I could just play the Fear, but there's nothing I actively want to discard. So I guess Knife Trick it is. They still get to trigger the Dollmaker's Shop. I see Collector's Cage, that's the big payoff. Also plays well with the room cards, since you can cast this early, but maybe get the expensive half with Cage. So now I've got something to discard at least. Can surveil. Doesn't matter if I surveil first, not really. Alright, just need to survive another turn, and then we can maybe stabilize. Yuna I can put in the graveyard, and then Verilax gets back Yuna, which is a little bit better than just casting one of them. But we'll see. Collector's Cage into a Craterhoof, of course, would be game over. And we're just gonna cast another Cage instead. And no activation. Okay, so Verilax. And get back Yuna. Can still attack with Delirium, gain some life back. And start going wide myself. So the first Cage must not have had anything exciting, since it could have enabled it. I guess never mind, they had only 1 and 2 power, so then they would have needed an extra counter somewhere. Ouroboros, pretty decent payoff. Especially with Cage growing it next turn. So what can I do in the meantime? I guess Verilax is a good blocker. The Knights could just gain 3, but they're not getting in any damage, so yeah, need to find something that I can maybe reanimate with Yuna. So we'll start with a Rendezvous since it digs a bit deeper. I guess Overlord is kind of my fail case here. But Bahamut would be a little bit better. But then I would also need red mana for Fear. So I don't think that's happening. Parlor versus Fear. Parlor could maybe still surveil summon Bahamut to answer Ouroboros. For now, I guess Fear could attack alongside Verilax, which I get to untap. Maybe just go all out at this point. Except for Yuna. Alright, don't mind seeing the trades. Makes the Ouroboros less scary. So now, still not really interested in attacking with Yuna, but Verilax can get in again. And then maybe I prefer having an extra Fear. Discard Parlor. And get back the Overlord. Now getting back Fear, discarding another Summon Knights could be decent. Opponent's down to 4, but now sheltered by Ghosts. Can exile my Summon Knights. They can still grow Ouroboros a bunch, although I should have a reasonable block. And yeah, currently they cannot enable the second cage, since they have 2 creatures with the same power. And with their opponent at 4, if they don't gain life, they're probably dead next turn, so they have to attack. So now that they got the extra 1/1 token, they can also enable the other cage. So that could maybe surprise us. I guess with a backup Yuna, I probably shouldn't take any unnecessary risks. Yeah, what's the best they can have here? Their opponent activates Cage, and that one's not too bad. Needs to untap before they can activate and put +1 counters on their artifacts. But now we get back our Knights of Round. And can still play Yuna before attacking. We have Delirium, so I can untap. The White Overlord's getting blocked by the 6/7 most likely, so probably Verilax, but the opponent seems dead regardless. Still ended up being pretty close. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a hand that's missing red mana and a reanimation effect, but we can Day of Judgment, turn 4 presumably. Still a close one on the play. Yeah, this deck doesn't love mulliganing, but I don't know if this hand's gonna get there. If I find red mana in the first draw step or 2, we're fine. Then I just need to draw one of my reanimation effects and we can reset the board to buy ourselves more time. I'll try it. Another Hushwood Verge is no red mana. Starting town, so maybe some multicolor deck starts with Letter Elves. Alright, found the Parlor. And we'll keep Yuna, so we've got all the pieces. Either Fear or Rendezvous, discard Knights of Round, Day of Judgment on 4, and hopefully Yuna on 5. It's gonna be a Twitching Doll, so it might be a Spider deck after all. And lots of ramp, which does play into our Day of Judgment at least. So, don't want to run out a creature if we're gonna wipe the board. Delirium is enabled for what it's worth. So I still need land 5, but between Seize and Rendezvous we'll get there. Can always use our Treasure to get up to 5 mana. But I imagine I'm gonna have to take a turn off casting the Day of Judgment. They could have the Spider that makes their team indestructible. That's 2 to play, 1 to sacrifice. Never mind. Fulcrum. Finds another Fulcrum, so that's what they're setting up here. Okay, so they can make 4 mana to cast spells from exile. And that's another card that pairs well with those abilities. Still looks like a board where I want a Day of Judgment. And Kellen joins up, by the way, also very good with these dual-faced cards, since you can plot and then cast expensive half for free on the following turn. But yeah, let's put a stop to this. So this only makes mana for spells in exile. And they've got another Elves. Alright, so now we'll Seize, discarding maybe 1 Yuna at this point, which I can then reanimate with Verilax. And then Fear, discard maybe a Rendezvous. Or I can discard another Fear, so we've got more enchantments for Yuna. Okay, and then next turn Verilax, get back Yuna, which in turn gets back our Summon Knights of Round. Opponent does have the Scions, however, so that's scary. So I can attack and then untap the Fear. So we may eventually need to find Summon Bahamut to answer the Scions. Yuna does give the enchantment creatures lifelink, so that can help. And now the Scheme can exile more cards that they can maybe use with the Fulcrum. And they did find another Storyteller. Can cast the expensive half. And now the Storm Spinner as well. So yeah, one's going off. It's a lot of damage that we cannot block. This one also has Vigilance. And that one's got Double Strike, so we just die. Wow, that was impressive. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the play with a hand that seems fine. Got all the elements, a discard outlet, something to reanimate, and a reanimation spell. And the lands to cast them. Bahamut might be something we would rather reanimate than an Overlord. And our opponent on a Spider deck, of course, going to be quite popular today. So Fear, discard Overlord, still looks okay, even though we could impend it. So I could discard a Verilax, don't expect any counter spells or discard spells really. So then at least I have a play I can make with 4 mana. Fate Weaver likely getting the Scions at some point. For now we Surveil. Happy to play defense. Another Verilax, I guess I'll keep now. Or do I? Yeah, maybe it's not actually all that useful. Would rather find Yuna. Can at least give us lifelink. Or another discard outlet for the Overlord could be fine, we'll see. If we had both Yuna and Verilax, Verilax can then get back Yuna, which in turn gets something back, so that's the ideal sequence. Alright, Seize the Spoils is now an option. Although I think I just prefer making some flyers and then next turn getting back Summon Bahamut. Opponent's gonna flash in a way to protect their team, so that can also protect from Summon Bahamut, perhaps. They do have the mana to cast the Scions if they have it, but it does leave them tapped out, so that's good for us. So Bahamut answers Scions, even though Fate Weaver can eventually get another. They do have First Strike. So double blocking doesn't work since I can just take out both flyers. But I could have double blocked Fate Weaver, which is why I didn't attack. Okay, so Verilax, it's your time to shine. Can attack first if I'd like. Sure, I guess the Fear can get in there. Probably leave my other flyers back. Or I can maybe send in one of them. So we'll see how they respond to this. They could just slam down another one, and then we could be in trouble. Although at least Bahamut's a large flyer as well, so that can get in the way. For now, Twitching Doll is acceptable. Still draws off Demira. Okay, and what do we destroy? Either way, they're probably going to sacrifice in response. Yeah, I don't think it matters. I'll go for Fate Weaver. But they're probably going to protect it. So that happens. Okay, so that can soak up an attack from our flyers, so there's no real point in getting in. Can still seize the spoils, and... do I Surveil first? I guess I do. Summon Knights can go. Even though I'm somewhat close to just hard casting it, would still rather find Yuna. Alright, Day of Judgment could be decent. Rendezvous, discard starting town. And then Knife Trick can also be put to use. So Verilax could still attack. It either grows or our opponent takes 5. Could also leave it back, but yeah, it seems fine. Okay, pass a turn. Next turn we'll get to Overlord of the Mistmoors. So they could sack Fate Weaver, get another Scions and cast it, which kind of runs into our Day of Judgment plan. They've got a different plan here. Pick up the Elves and draw a card. Next turn we would draw 2. And we could attack twice with a Fear, so that's 18 in the air. So we could have lethal, depending on what else they have. Opponent passes with 2 mana, get to draw 2. There's Yuna for lifelink. So I don't think I need to Day of Judgment. Can play Yuna and then still double Knife Trick if needed. Do I need to Knife Trick anything now? Not really. Alright, and that'll do it. Awesome. So we got to see this Naya Reanimator deck in action, making use of quite a few new additions here. And yeah, Anti-Venom paired with Yuna gives us that much needed redundancy to reanimate our expensive spells. And of course this is going to be one of the many versions of Reanimator in Standard. Typically going to see the black versions, which can already zombify for 4 mana, which is maybe a little bit more efficient. So it's going to be hard to tell if this version's necessarily going to be better than your black variant, since of course you do have some advantages with Yuna reanimating cards turn after turn. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see how the metagame settles down and whether or not a Reanimator deck like this has a place in it. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.